always start this by, whoever I'm talking to, just asking about the basics of, your personal background and how you got into business and also the recruitment sector, how you ended up being in charge of Norstrem Associates.
Sure. Well, I started my career as a CPA. Okay. Um, Graduated from school, moved down here to Tampa, went to work at Deloitte in their tax department, got my CPA. I worked 5 years in public accounting, doing tax and accounting work. I got sort of about 3, 4 years into it, I was kind of realizing that maybe this accounting thing wasn't for me. Um, One of the partners at the last firm I worked at told me, he said, "Man, you got a future here. You can sell work like nobody's business. People love you and you can sell the work." And my challenge was I didn't enjoy doing the work. So I thought, well, I've got to find so if I'm good at selling, maybe I should find something where I could leverage my knowledge of accounting with dealing with people instead of dealing with numbers on a regular basis. And I get introduced, I think, through a mutual friend to somebody at a national recruiting firm. And they said, "Hey, they'll help you find a job to leave public accounting." And I went in to meet with them. And within 15 minutes, they were like, "We want you to work here and be a recruiter." So they had to explain to me what a recruiter was, what a recruiter did, because the first thing I thought when I heard recruiter was like the Marine Corps or the Army or something like that. They
Right.
explained to me what a recruiter was, and I said, okay. They offered me a job. I took it, and so I was with that firm for about 5 years also, where I became one of their top producers. I was running two offices for perm placement for that company, one in Orlando, one in Tampa. It was going real well. Some things changed at the organization, and I decided that I was going to go on my way. Um, and joined another recruiting firm, which didn't work out after a real short period of time. So once my non-compete with that first recruiting firm was over, I just decided I was going to start my own business.
Mm.
So I started, looks like you're in your back bedroom. That's where I started, not your back bedroom, but I started in the back bedroom of my house, recruiting on my own. And that was 27 years ago. So
Wow.
that's since 1998. I've been recruiting Tampa, Orlando, and the I-4 corridor finance and accounting professionals.
What's really interesting to see is a lot of the conversations I have, it people's journeys into entrepreneurship and business typically start off pretty rocky. I mean, people, like the people that I've talked to, they say that they go into jobs and they're unsure if it's what they want to do, or they're so unhappy that it pushes them to be a pioneer and start something of their own and kind of give birth to an idea that they create or something that they think they can execute better than the other guy. So I think it's a pretty interesting theme to see. I think it's commonplace.
Well, I'm going to draw a parallel just because I saw my brother this weekend. My brother, who's 1 year younger than me, lives out in Seattle. His dream ever since he was 6 or 7 years old was to be a veterinarian. His whole life pointed towards going to school to be a vet, buying out a practice, having his own veterinary practice. His career was very linear. He's got a very successful veterinary practice out in Seattle right now. And I'll say, and then my business for the last, like you say, 32 years has been in observing people's careers and talking to people about their careers, helping people through their careers. It doesn't always work that way. Matter of fact, it rarely works that way. Where you think you're starting off down one path, and next thing you know, you end up on an off ramp, or you find something else, or you find something else within the company that you're at, or to your point, maybe you decide, hey, I want to be my own boss. I want to do my own thing.
Mhm. So I'd like to go a little bit deeper into obviously your business, Norstrem Associates. I mean, like you said, 20 being in business for 25 years in the Central Florida region, what changes in the landscape have you seen, or what has significantly shifted the landscape in Central Florida in terms of recruiting and executive level hiring?
That's a great question. It's mind-boggling the difference between Tampa Bay in when I started in 1993 and what Tampa Bay is like in 2025. Um, the first of all, the biggest impact has just been the growth of the market. Just the sheer number and volume of companies and people that move to this area really changes the landscape. I think the second thing that we've seen the last probably 15 years that has impacted my business, because just for clarity, my business works in two main buckets. Okay. I'll recruit CFOs, controllers, and financial professionals for private equity portfolio companies, something that I know you heard about at the Dealmaker Forum. And then the other half of my business is recruiting CPAs at the upper level for CPA firms. Okay, those are my lanes, and I try to stay in those lanes. There's other stuff comes up, like I'm working a not-for-profit deal now. That's just because I know somebody and asked me to help them out, things like that. But to your point about how things have changed in the last 15 years, private equity has gotten so pervasive that that's really changed the landscape. And you may ask, well, why would it change the landscape? Because if you've got a private company reporting to the founder, reporting to dad or whoever or mom, they don't need necessarily the sophisticated financial reporting skills that a company that's a PE portco does. So in the past, you may have just needed maybe a controller or a very good bookkeeper. Now that they're a PE portco, now you need a CFO and also maybe a controller with sophisticated skills that understand acquisitions, that understand fundraising, that understand how to do an exit and things like that. So just really the last 15 years, the whole PE thing has really changed the market. And then on the CPA side, that other bucket, the CPA firms, just with all the firm consolidations, there's been a number of firm consolidations, say in the last 5 years, that have really changed the dynamic. People going to work at a CPA firm thinking they'll retire there. Company gets acquired, the firm gets acquired or merges with another firm, and the culture changes, and they want to move on. So I mean, does that answer your question?
Yeah. hmm I shifting a little bit towards the present and emerging technologies. I always love to talk about with people artificial intelligence because I think it's, um, I mean, quite possibly the most advanced human invention to date. And the possibilities and the potential that it has in the future are mind-boggling. So I'd love to hear from your perspective how that has, um, if at all, changed the recruiting process within Nordstrom Associates, or how you find people or connect people with firms.
That's a great question, and I'll say this. Let me draw a sort of a contrast. I remember I was sitting in an office talking to the president of a company in 1999, and he told me that the internet's coming and my job's going to go away. Your job's going to be automated, your job's going to go away. Well, 26 years later, it's a people business. So at its core, it's a people business. AI is great, but AI isn't sentient yet. It's not at the people level. It's not at the discretionary level. It can't have discrete conversation. It doesn't know how to do that yet. It doesn't know how to pick up on cues yet. Okay. So as far as recruiting goes, AI hasn't impacted the recruiting side. Now it'll do some cool things. You've got some programs out there it'll shorten the time to find candidates or potential candidates. Then you still have to contact them, which AI is light years away from doing that. But and effectively contacting them and engaging them. But as far as like maybe narrowing down a candidate pool, helping me write a job description, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty nice. I can drop in some things, have it write a job description, give it a few more cues, it'll be all done. That's pretty cool. But as far as anybody thinking like AI is going to replace a third party recruiter, not as long as I'm running this desk. They're not, 'cause it's not even close. I mean, it's not even close. Okay. It's not even close. So maybe someday it will, but not today.
Just on a personal level, what are your thoughts on AI? How do you think it will affect, I guess, just industries in general? I mean, there's a lot of people who say all jobs are going to be taken. There are people who say it's an assist. That's kind of what I got from your answer, is that it can be a helpful assistant rather than take someone's job, right? It can help you in certain areas, but it's not sentient, like you said. So what are your thoughts on the future of AI?
I, I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm the wrong guy to ask about technology. If my sons who are 31 and 29 are in the professional world knew you were asking me that question, they'd be like, Dad, don't answer that question. So, I mean, I think, I listened to a lot of Elon Musk. I read his biography. I admire what the guy's done. I still, I listen to him when he gets interviewed and what he has to say. He's obviously very optimistic about it. But like for example, I started in taxes, right? And doing taxes involves myriad decision trees, decision tree after decision tree after decision tree. And then when you get all through those decision trees, you may be required not, you won't be left with an answer, but you'll be left with, you have to take a position. Okay. So when I look at like, and even when I talk to some of my CPA friends who are in tax, they say the same thing. They say, AI is a long ways away, a long ways away. I mean, you can do some stuff, the basic manual stuff. It may displace stuff at the lower level, but at the higher strategic levels, it's a long ways away. Is it coming? I'd be foolish if I said that it's not coming. It's coming, but I don't think it's at the strategic, the higher level. I don't think it's quite as near as people want to think. Because if it was, I'd be hearing about it through my clients.
Right. Talking about the future, what are the biggest growth opportunities that you see for recruiting businesses, like Norstrem Associates in the next, maybe 3 to 5 years? Maybe in part with developing technology, maybe just in terms of the shifting uh, demographics, if that plays a role
Oh,
in it.
absolutely. Absolutely, it does. Because in the next 3 to 5 years, all the boomers will be gone. There's still boomers that are accountants that are still working effectively. But the biggest dynamic is the side of the equation where um, there are less accounting professionals graduating every year, and that rate of decrease is increasing, if that makes sense. So there's not more accountants coming out, there's less accountants, and there's less and less and less every year. So I think for whether depending upon how much longer I want to do this, meaning retire, not go do something else. I would never do anything else. It's either this or retire. So the question is, how long do I want to do it? As long as I want to do it, there's going to be demand for accountants because there's just less of them.
Hmm.
Okay. So that's what I see for the next 3 to 5 years. I don't see this accounting shortage being mitigated at all in the next 3 to 5 years, unless, to your point, Elon or somebody comes up with some magic formula for AI to allow it to do some of the more strategic stuff.
Interesting. And I always like to talk about the past with within the conversations. I think it's important for high level executives like yourself. I think it's valuable to kind of reflect. So if any aspiring entrepreneurs or people who want to go into business are watching, they can learn from your experiences. So if you were to go back in time and give your high school self, again, I don't know, at that time if you were passionate about accounting or something completely different. If you could go back in time and give your high school self one piece of advice, professional advice, going into the business world or whatever, what would it be?
Yeah. That's a great question. And it's probably not going to be what you think. If I were to go back and give myself a piece of advice, when I was, say, graduating from high school, what I would say to myself is whatever your goals are, they're not big enough. You can become whatever you want, and whatever you think you can become right now, you can become a lot bigger than that. So that would be one thing that I'd say. Another thing that I'd say, if you ever encounter failure, keep grinding, because sometimes resilience is the cost of success. Keep going. Just keep going. No matter how, if you're committed to something, keep going. You're going to stub your toe. You're going to have issues. Things are going to go wrong. Keep going.
It's fascinating that you said resilience because in every conversation I've had so far, the number one trait or personality characteristic that entrepreneurs or people who go into business, people who have founded companies such as yourself, chief technology officers, they have all mentioned resilience as being paramount in business and entrepreneurship. Why do you think resilience is so important, such an important trait to have when going into this industry?
I think resilience is important if you're going into any industry because at its core, life's not fair. It's tough. It's tackle football out there. There's other people competing against you so that they can get a bigger slice of the pie. They're not going after Zane's slice of the pie. They just want their pie to be a bigger slice of the pie. And things are gonna, so you got competition, things are gonna go wrong. You're gonna make mistakes. And there's some people that have trouble after they make mistakes, they can't recover. But that's where resilience comes in. You have to understand the importance of resilience. That's why a lot of times when I'm recruiting for positions, I love having college athletes in there because they know that when things go wrong, you got to keep going. You got to keep going. So really to answer your question, those are the two biggest, to me, the two biggest things is your competition, and things aren't always going to go your way. Everybody can pat themselves on the back when things are going your way, but what do you do when things don't go your way? That's where your resilience comes in.
It seems like accepting what you can't control it plays a really big role in that, like bad things are going to happen, setbacks are going to happen, but it's all about how you respond to that, and you can't just become subdued by things that are inflicted on you that are painful, physically or mentally. It
Right.
seems that it's really important to just understand and accept that that's a part of life and to control what you can control and do the best job that you can in whatever you're doing. I find there
Right.
was this really interesting piece I read. I believe it was Martin Luther King who wrote it. He said if there's a shoe shiner in Alabama that he always went to because the shoe shiner he shined shoes as best he could, and that's important, right? No matter what your job is, if you're a street sweeper, you want to sweep the streets like Michelangelo painted. No matter what your job is, it's about doing the best that you can with what you have in your control, and accepting what you can't control is just a fact of life.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And if you become a resilient person, what you'll learn to understand is many of your worries go away. And why is that? Because you're not going to worry about if something goes wrong. How there people get tied up in knots just worrying about what if this happens? What if that happens? What if this happens? Well, if you know that you're a resilient person, you don't, yeah, you got stuff that you think about, and you plan for, but you don't lay around worrying,
Right.
which can take you out at the knees. And it can make you it can make you very ineffective at whatever you do.
I think I think that experience is undoubtedly the best teacher. I think learning from experience is it's it can be painful sometimes, but that's why it teaches you the best lessons. And even if people are too young to learn to have, such insane experiences to learn valuable lessons from, I think you can still learn from other people's experiences, and that's really the core found that's the foundation of why I started this podcast to learn from other people's experiences, what they've been through, particularly pertaining to entrepreneurship and starting companies to kind of just pick their brain about what they've been through and how that's changed them and revolutionized them as a person.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I agree that experience is a great teacher. I also am a firm believer that do the best you can to learn from other people's mistakes, like really pay attention to other people's mistakes and try to incorporate that. Because obviously, when you put your hand on the hot stove, you're the one with the burned hand, but somebody else does it, your hand doesn't hurt, but pay attention anyways.
Right, right,
Maybe I shouldn't do that. You know what I mean? And a
exactly.
lot of this stuff, I admire you for doing this. A lot of the stuff that people are telling you probably makes sense, but it might not quite all fit together yet. But one day it will. One day it will. You'll get it.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. I think that was a really valuable conversation.
I hope so. I hope you enjoyed it. I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Of course, I mean that deal maker form, I had to get.